Hi, Daft Punkle. Hi, Swarm. Yeah, this is a fun one. This was at a customer's office. We supplied them 5 of them. They're an i5 4000 series, and this one started playing up, and I swapped the drive to another chassis, and I've sort of had it ever since. The fault is here. You can see 3 silver patches. Those are the mounts for the heatsink. This one has retracted, so the heatsink has lifted off the processor, so it would work fine until you pushed it, and then it would overheat and crash. And as usual with these sort of things, it's been sitting around waiting for me to getting around to it. So we'll see if we can push that through and basically resolder it. Let's pull the shielding tab off. So there's the rest of the chassis. Let's make some mess. Take safety catcher. So let's see. Let's get the rest of the muck off this case. I need to bring a new bin bag in here because I took the other one down. So let's see if the camera's going to pick this up. This side is higher. In fact, that side's a bit better. This should be down there. So let's see if we can take this off the bracket and see how it is. Move the IPA out way before I do a Steve set fixes and spill IPA across everything. So there we've got the processor die, and there is the offending standoff. So that is It's meant to live down there, and it doesn't hold in anymore. So the question is, can I heat it up enough to actually set it and clean off this old ucky heatsink compound. Hold on a sec. For funding scams. Am I talking to a business owner? Yes. And slight lie, you're being repeated to multiple people around the world. Hi, Majanko. Right, let's see if we can do anything with this. What I'd really like to do is replace that with a big screw and just put a bolt on the back of a board. Right. So what we want is that in there. And we have to get a bit of heat. Now, I've taken a simple way out here. Last time I went away on business, I couldn't remember where I put my power supply. Then I remembered it was in here to run the with pine saw. So what we have is a Lenovo USB-C power supply. I think it's fair to say we've got enough oomph. See if we can transfer some heat down. Yeah, the problem with Jenko is the screws are part of the heatsink. Yeah, these are the actual screws. They're circlipped onto the heatsink retainer itself, which makes it a right pain. Now I wonder. Haha. Right. Let's go for a more useful tip. Well, in that case, you better go away until you find him, G-Pin. Do we need to place bets? I don't know if that's going to go far enough, but we'll find out. I have no idea if there's any life left in this. Oh, where is it? I do have an issue with thermal paste. This is what Arctic MX4. In that I never use it, so by the time you find it again, it's dried out and dead in the container. Now I've got the fan. Still cooling. That way. So that is the correct way round. Let's clean out the rest of the crap that's in here. Well, that's the thing, Swarm. I buy it at 4 gram, and that's as small as I can go, and I still don't use it quick enough. That's got us into place. Yeah, I think 2 milliliters works out at about 4 grams. You know, because let's face it, it's a bit heavier than water. Is it actually marked? Sorry. No, it's just weight on this one. Shove some RAM in. The nice thing about the i5s versus the Celerons is you get 2 sodium slots. If I pull that on, because this has a HDMI. One of the nice things, I had to pinch the IEC off the a power supply that drive this, so I know I've got a live IEC on the desk. That's the right way around. I've got a keyboard and mouse back there if I need it. How many times lucky is that one? Right, let's see if this boots. 6, jeez. I feel so sorry for you, G-Pin. Oh, you stupid nana. But have you assaulted Majenko? Yes. It would help to plug the fan header back in. There we go. There we go. Let's try that again. Hi, Daft Punkle. See if we can get these in the board in straight. There we go. One of the problems with these is there's only actually 6 screws. 2 of them go through the shell and actually hold the top panel on, and the other 4 go all the way through and hold the whole thing together. So if you take the board out, the other parts of the case just fall apart. This is a SSHD in here, which if I use it for anything will be coming out, and I'll just stick a straight SSD in it. Right. I think it's F2 on these. Yeah, yes it is. Well, that's pretty good. Time's a bit off, but that's to be expected. It hasn't actually been used in quite a while. See what we got on this off. So 2 cores with hyper threading, 2.3 gig to full speed. Yeah, it sees the drive. CPU temperature looks good compared to what it was. Hi Peter. Network stack off. Yeah. No idea what OS is on this at the moment. That'd be Windows 7 then. It's probably going to moan like hell because this isn't the machine this drive was in. As I say, I when I yanked the drive, I didn't bother to reconnect it, so you should stick something else on it. I mean, I suppose for funds, I should pull down NetBSD 11, given it was was it released? Is it today? I do like these for doing silly things. There's two behind me on the top of the rack. One is my Unify controller, and one is now running a Pi-hole. Although the idea of using this for a Unify server is appealing because I don't want to touch the running system until I know what the changes are in the new one. So that would... So I wonder if I could get an SSD small enough for it now. Because the problem is, like one of the problems I've got with my Pi-hole is it's got 240 gig SSD in it, which is a little bit overkill. So, has that tip cooled down? Yes, it has. I should get a rack or something to hold the pine seal tips, either on the wall or on the shelf, so that they're safe and stuff. But yeah, if I'm using this, I'm probably not gonna let it run on the actual spinning disc. Was it set for password G-pin, or was yours set to blank? Oh, that's fair. Let's see what this comes up with temperature. Yeah, so the temperatures are what I'd expect for this sort of machine. So I'll stick the screws back in. Problem this currently has is it has a label on the base of it that tells me it's details for the copy of Office it had on it, which is completely useless because it will be 2013. But I still don't want to give out any of the details to... it doesn't even affect the customer because the Office account is actually on one of my domains, so... So I suppose what I need is a Debian installer. But I don't have one in here because don't think I've got any spare USB sticks in here. I've got still customers running much older versions of Office. Mostly on the small business version of it. Works, it does what we want, we're not spending any money on it. So the sort of customers I've got, Daft Punk, who are doing that sort of stuff, are literally using it for its original intention. So they're doing Word documents, they're doing simple spreadsheets. I could move them over onto LibreOffice and they wouldn't notice the difference in the end. So at some point that's probably what's going to happen. They don't use any advanced features. In fact, the only people in the company who have modern versions of Office are because one of their suppliers uses modern features, and we had to upgrade that side of the company to Office 365. So of course they're now paying monthly for the ability to open their customers' pre-built spreadsheets, which seems a bit of a stupid ass way of doing it, but you know, this is how things are. So right, I need an installer. I will be back in a second and we will stick something on this and see how it goes. I mean, it would be slow with a hard disk instead of SSD, but I can't be asked to dig through the big stack of SSDs. You know, I'm not like Action Retro and I have them on the wheel of SSDs ready to select and use. So, back in a sec. Yep, that's right, I don't have one pre-made, so I'm just waiting for that to write to a stick. So we need... The problem of having remade this cable is it's Cat6 and therefore not particularly flexible across the floor. Could really do with plumbing in some extra network sockets so I can have some relatively close network cables for stuff that's on the desk. Wasn't really a factor when I built this because it was all designed to have a workstation here and a workstation there. I now have to remember where the Unify install scripts are. Right, I'll go and see if that stick's finished. Back in a sec. Right, sorry about that. It was far enough along to not be worth coming back through, and not far enough along for it to be quick. Let's see if we can... What have we got? Boot options. That's better. Ah, mini ITX, yeah. Yeah, these really didn't come around until the NUC came about. And these really are a gigabyte clone of a NUC. The biggest disadvantage is you don't get Intel NICs in them. The Intel ones, shockingly, Intel fitted Pro 1000s. These tend to have reattach, so or maybe I'll plug the other end. Hold on. So it turns out, when I was putting in the power supply through the BRIX into the PDU for one of the UPSs, it managed to knock this network cable ever so slightly out. Because that wouldn't fit in my naming scheme even if I did want to use it. I'm pondering at the moment cutting a an old switch to pieces to act as a rack mount for the BRIX. This one's one of the low profile ones compared to the Celerons there. About another centimetre taller. But it would be useful to have all three of them on a shelf and out the way. If only from a cabling point of view, because it would just make life a bit easier. Even though if I did use this as what I'm planning on, it would end up replacing one of those. At least this will be a relatively quick install because it's not going to have X or anything. I very rarely do kitchen sink installs. I tend to build devices to do a job, so you know it's like if it's going to be running unified controller, why bother to put all the etc. on there when the worst case scenario is you're going to shell into it to reboot it. Yeah, but Ben did it for fun. We could just put that down as Ben is Ben. It's like going for the Majenko argument. Majenko's Majenko. I'd hope so, Majenko. I mean, I'm hoping you're not the bot. I mean, we'd noticed you don't talk enough to be the bot. Oh good, no more silly phone calls. It's the drive, Peter. It's a Seagate SSHD, so it's a 500 gig spinning Rust with, I can't remember how much flash is on there. I think it's something like 4 gig. Not 4 gig. Yeah, about 4 gig to 8 gig of SSD cache. At the time we built these, that was the best bet. You can put in a mini, well, it's basically an MSATA drive into these ones. In the others, SATA's your only interface because they were cut down to a price. Funnily, all of these of this generation have 2 video outputs. It just varies on what they are. So the Celeron has VGA and HDMI. Funnily, on different sides of the casings. So you've got HDMI in the back and SVGA and audio on the side, which makes it a pain if you want to stack for things. Whereas these ones have HDMI and mini DisplayPort on the back, so they're much more convenient to work with. They put the audio jack on the front on these. You also get an extra USB port. On this model you get 2 A's on the front, 2 on the back. On the Celeron you get 2 A's on the back and 1 on the front, and on the newer models it was 2 on the back, 1 on the front with a USB-C on the front. So for the size of them, they're pretty good little machines, especially if you want like a raw desktop. You know, they come with a plate to screw onto a VESA mount, and then this just drops onto it, and it just keeps it out of the way. There's one of these under the desk at my mum's running one of my secondary DNS servers. The main one's here, one of the secondaries here, one's at Carax's office, and one's literally just bolted under the desk at my mum's. Right, that should cool, so I can get rid of that. I have to see if my laptop likes this power supply. My laptop is having charging issues. If I plug my USB-C 65 watt power supply into it, it recognises it but won't charge. If you plug it into my Anker power bank and then plug the Anker power bank into the laptop, it charges fine. So it's been quite picky. So I want to try this one, see if it's any different for one I've been trying. All the power supplies have their own cables, well, so the one I'm running with is this one type with built-in USB-C. The Hi Dark and everyone. The Anker power bank has its own internal power lines, so this goes into a USB-C on it and the USB-C cable from me. Okay, that's an interesting one. And as it hasn't got any further, this won't be bootable. Let's I'm gonna have to, there we go. Of course, I haven't actually touched a mouse. Let's find a new choice. Well, this is what these units are actually called, Brenner. These are called BRIX, B-R-I-X. It's gigabytes equivalent of the Intel Next Unit of Computing, or NUC. One of the advantages to these over the NUC was they were a bit cheaper. I'm realising I should have checked the temperature on the reboot and just seen if it was actually cooling the processor properly. It's weird to be running a graphical installer. I very rarely bother. Would help if I actually go into the next box instead of there we go. Well, I've got warm air coming out the back, so I'm hoping that means that the heatsink's making contact properly. We'll see if this actually gets further than the command line version. I keep listening to my chair squeak, and it's scary that I work with people who are younger than this chair, because I got this chair when we built the computer room in 2003. So the chair is 23 years old. Yep, this is Debian 13. This is I want to use it as a test for a new version of the Wi-Fi controller software I use. Unify have recently changed from their network manager to what they call OS server, and I don't know what the difference is yet, so I want a machine to basically play about for the new version, and the easiest way of doing it is to put the software onto a Linux machine. This machine had a fault that it has 3 mounting posts that the heatsink uses to sit on the processor itself, and one of them became detached, so the heatsink levered up slightly, which really was a problem for cooling. When this machine was out on a customer's site, the guy who was using it would work on stuff, and then he'd go and do something that was a bit heavier, and the machine would reboot, and it was literally just overheating because of the heatsink not making contact with the chip die properly. So we've put the post back into the board, tried to get it to hold with solder, because it looks like it's just soldered into the board. New thermal paste on the chip die, and then screwed it back down. So it's a perfect test machine. It's free, it works. It's got more than enough memory for the actual configuration. They don't recommend, with the old Unify, they don't recommend running it with less than 2 gig, and they recommend 4. And this has got 4 in it in a spare slot. So, you know, if I need to add some more memory, I'm sure I can find a DDR3 SODIMM around here, because, you know, I haven't taken loads of these to pieces or anything when working on them. Yeah, I was upgrading an install this morning, Daft Punkle, which was Bullseye running 8.4. It's now I've now jumped it up through Bookworm up to Trixie, which is 13, and then rerun the installer and told the installer to take it up to 10.5, I think is the current family. And it works, but the interface is a bit more crap. I think this is roughly where it's screwed up before, and it's going to be the firmware for the Wi-Fi card, which isn't a problem because I'm not running it. Let's see if this will go through then. I just prefer the old design. If you're working on stuff, it just works better. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't get in your way. It's the same problem I have with Office 365. If I'm logging in to change something, the thing that winds me up is suddenly getting a pop-up saying, do you want to give your opinion on this? The answer is no, I want to do the work I logged in to do. Maybe I'm weird like that, but I have submitted lots of comments back to Microsoft along those lines when that message appears. And Unify's the same. One of the problems with Unify 8 and onwards is you have to do multi-factor of authentication to log in. So you're logging into a machine that is on your local network with a username and password, and it needs internet access to send a request out to them to email you a 6-digit login code so you can log in. This is going to be a pain if the net's down when you're trying to fix something. It's one of the things that winds me up in Windows when I'm working. The fact that Windows likes to... If you do not have internet access on Wi-Fi, Windows will try and connect to different networks that your machine knows. This is a bit of a problem if you're the person fixing the Wi-Fi. The last time this happened, there wasn't a fault for Wi-Fi. The fault was in DNS. The pie hole on site had died. But I couldn't do anything to investigate it because every time I started fixing it, Windows from my laptop would change the Wi-Fi network I was on to their guest network, which still didn't have internet access because it still goes through their pie hole. But what I was trying to do was change their main network for the main DNS server to not use the pie hole, so that I could then fix the pie hole with it out of the loop. Couldn't stay connected long enough to make that change. And that sort of thing winds me up. Not having a button that just says, no, don't do this. Let me do what I am doing. Don't try and fix it. And of course, it's a sort of the argument between settings and control panel in Windows 11. The amount of stuff that isn't in settings, but they want to depreciate control panel where that setting is. It's like, give me a button that just says no, let me use that. Or give me the option to actually change it in the first one, but yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, if big tech understood consent, they wouldn't be big tech, would they? Let's see if we get a bootloader, because that's where we didn't get to before. There we go. Well, to be fair, Brenda, that would also involve them understanding copyright as well. Shelby's got a post up about it at the moment that he's just reboosted to Mastodon, and someone made a very good comment that either copyright will break generative AI or generative AI will break copyright, because at the moment the two things are completely exclusive. I just like what we're doing to all books, let alone the rare ones. The rare ones is just worse. Well, that's a good start. So. Right, let's would help if I can spell. Doesn't work without yes. Of course, can't edit the config file until the actual package is in. Right, now I've got to remember how to do this next bit, so... we might as well go for the latest. So, have we got wget on here? Yes. Yeah. This is one of the few things I use Patreon outside of Twitch for. It's supporting people who do stuff like this. I don't know if he does it, but there's a couple of other projects like Legacy Patcher that I support that way because they're so useful to me in my working career. You know, the ability to take where you've got an old CNC machine that needs a specific version of Windows. and I'm quite happy to support people who are doing stuff like that. Right, so for once I need to do one. So this should now be pulling data. One of the fun ones is the Unify controller needs MongoDB, and most systems you want to install it on no longer have a matching package. So it will pop up with a message if you do that saying, look, I can't install this on your system. Do you want to use the package I have produced for your system for this version of Unify systems and this version of this version of Linux? And I haven't seen a reason not to trust the guy who does this yet, because I haven't found any issues in the packages. I haven't found any machines trying to talk to random places. As far as I can tell, it is just a straight compile to match into the script. So I'm gonna trust them. There have been a few times I've pondered about contacting the maintainer of this and asking if they want basically a backup repository, and I'll give them space on one of our hosted servers. Just give them another place it can pull from, another set of bandwidth. I mean, we've got unlimited gigabit feeds on most of the servers. I can't see this using anything that would even register on the traffic graphs. I just can't be bothered to change consoles to see what it's doing. I should have thought through a different keyboard. This is just the one I had in here from last week, but I should have brought through one of the ones that doesn't need an FN key to do the function keys, because that just winds me up. I have a selection of decent USB keyboards. The one I use on my stream watching machine is a Lenovo full Think Center USB 105 key keyboard. So yeah, it's the sort of thing you can take a good swing at someone. And I've found one in a box that's a Hewlett Packard server keyboard, so it's the black and silver, weighs half a kilo, but it's USB on the end, so it's a really nice keyboard. It's the sort that doesn't move around the table when you're doing stuff. I hope it is doing something. It'll be useful. Let's. There we go. Yep. Okay. Load average of almost 5. That would explain a few things. There we go. So that's all popped up. I will have to go and test this from another machine at some point. But before it does, let's check the temperatures. Let's see if it's actually happy with that heatsink. Don't know if I caught it in time. Yes, I did. So 52 degrees system temperature, 52 degrees CPU temperature. I think the heatsink's doing okay. Because let's face it, after that install, I'd expect it to be up at probably about 70 to 80 if the heatsink had been still not conducting the heat properly. So I think the repair on this might have worked properly. So I've got yet another 4000 series BRIX. I have another one of these out on site that I haven't picked up, and I need to pick it up and bring it back, and then I have yet another one to throw somewhere useful. Discount changes. Yes. Oh, this one doesn't throttle when it gets that bad swarm. It hangs. It literally does a hard reset on the system. So, like I said, that was the original fault, was the guy would go to do something and the machine would just reboot in front of him. He's also one of the people I have had interesting conversations with scammers emails. I'm sure you're all aware of the traditional scam email. I've put something on your machine. I've been watching what you've been doing. You've been watching porn on your computer, and I've recorded it, and I will send it to all your contacts. And I had to explain to him that he was in an open plan office of another company, because the office he was in was not at the customers, it was at one of their customers' offices, and they had an office so that they had people on site. And there were 5 people on site. He was the only male, and I literally had to put it to him that I didn't believe he would be doing that in that office, that I don't think he'd be doing it given the other occupants of the office, and the major overriding point is that his machine didn't have a webcam. So he couldn't have been filmed anyway. In fact, one of these machines was his machine. At that point, the actual name on the base includes initials of the office they were in. It's got FH in it instead of WH. WH was the customer's office, and FH is the name of the main office building at that customer of theirs. So it was an interesting conversation. But anyway, as I think these repairs have worked, I think we might be able to call that a success. That's Amazon telling me that things have shipped. So thank you everyone for joining. Oh yeah, yes. See, I have all your passwords. Yes. The other classic one we get is you need to. Here is an invoice that's outstanding and you need to pay. And honestly, I'm your managing director, and it's just the managing director's name on whatever compromised email account it's coming out of. But they'll say things. One of the good giveaways for me is all the spellings are American. Prioritise, authorise, both with Zs. Well, this is probably not going to shock you, but none of the managing directors of my customers are going to use American spellings in an email like that. But the even more fun one is it will say, here's the email chain of setting this up. And there was one today as a good example. The first email was officially sent on the 16th of July. The domain wasn't registered until the 3rd of August. So apparently this email was sent 2 weeks before they even owned the domain they sent it from. I have let one of those bounce today. The NDR for the bounce has been modified. And underneath the actual bounce message, it simply says, "Do you think we're fucking morons?" Right. Thank you everyone for joining me, and I will see you when I have something else to play with and fix. So, take care everyone, and thank you everyone who came in with the raid and has stayed. And now I get to go and do that traditional problem of I've got to go and figure out what I'm going to do for dinner, and I don't know what I'm going to do yet. So, I'm sure I'll see I'll see different sets of people in different streams later on. And I had sausages as hot dogs last night, Jupin. So, and I had a sausage sandwich for lunch. So, you know, I'm sausaged out today. So take care, everyone, and thank you for joining me. Bye.